So I'm going to install a set of LED lamps in my 1969 Camaro. These particular lamps, I purchased them off Amazon. They are part number JGJ003TB. These lamps have a high and a low beam built in, like the original H4 style lamp. They also have an LED ring around the outside, and this halo around the outside will glow white or amber depending on how you have it wired. So we're going to put these in. For the most part, they're a direct fit. They use the same style plug, which will actually plug directly into the car's current harness. But I'm going to take a little different tact on that. After I plug this in, I'm going to be doing some additional custom wiring in order to make the halo and the amber and the white work in the way that I want it to. Taking a look at these lamps together, the original factory sealed beam, when it's straight up, tells you the 2D, the halogen, General Electric, etc., the DOT approved. And when it sits in the vehicle, it is oriented in the headlamp mounting pods by these little notches that you'll find that go around it. This arrow is indicating straight up. These replacement beams, when they are in the vehicle, the up on this particular model is the small ring on top and the larger ring on the bottom, right here and right here. In order to make this compatible with your 1969, and this covers just a ton of cars throughout the years, domestic and foreign back in the days. It also has notches on it. They're a little different. They line up, and if you take a tape measure to it, you'll notice that all of these line up with the notches on the factory light. So that's how the lamp actually gets oriented into the slot. Also, I'm going to take a look from the side view, and you'll see it's actually overall a lower profile than the factory lamp. However, it does have additional features that are part of the heat sink. We'll find out whether or not any of this area creates challenges putting it in the car. So some of the major difference, obviously, not only is it an LED type lamp, but this halo helps create a really cool effect on the light, like a modern car, keeping the protective covering on it to avoid scratches. To give you an idea how that works, I'm going to do a quick hookup here. I'm going to connect to the ground and then alternate these others. Pull back the protective coating, and this is how the halo ring, either in amber or in white. My intention is to wire this into the car. There's that beam. My intention is to wire this into the car with a relay attached to the blinker and the ignition lead. So when the engine starts, whenever the car starts up, you'll automatically get the ring just whenever the key's on and it's operating. Whenever the blinker comes on, what will happen? The current will be broken, and the blinker will also affect the halo ring. So we'll see how that works. I'll show you how all that wires in. So we're going to take the factory headlamp out, and what these things are, they're held in by a bezel. The bezel has 3 screws on it. Sometimes it's helpful to have a helper when you do this, just to make sure you don't drop your lamp on the ground. Move this. Now, I have the grill out of this Camaro. That's not necessary to change headlamps. These old cars actually just have a larger bezel that goes around this one once you remove that, you're able to begin the process of replacing the bulb. So that removes the stainless bezel. Get that all cleaned up while I have it out. And now we can expose the lamp. It's got the power plug right here on the back. Now back when I built this car initially, I made sure and coated my electrical contacts with dielectric grease, so that stuff that you see there is actually there to help it maintain good quality contacts over time. And then this is your headlamp bucket that it sits in, and these points of reference right here are where the headlamp orients into the housing. So you have those on both sides, and the plug goes. So if I was just going to do a direct fit in here without connecting the halo wiring, all I would do is pull the lamp forward, plug it in, press all that back, orient the notch to the bezel, and then it locks in place, and then apply the stainless steel ring, hold the lamp in. There's nothing more to it than that. But I'm going to make it a little bit more complicated by doing a custom trigger with these lights on the halo. So what we're going to do down here is, in order for the halo to work, I'm going to need to set up a relay system on it that whenever the vehicle's in the accessory ignition on mode, that it'll have power. So what I'm going to do is go in here to my fuse panel, and because this is an add-on, obviously if I was building a car from day one, all this would be wired into my main panel. But instead what I'm going to do is take this jumper lead, and I'm simply going to plug it in to an accessory slot, as you'll see. And I will also, to avoid any confusion going forward, put a label on it as the halo. And while I'm at this, my label for the power seat and my label for the cruise control on these other settings that I've added to it. I'm going to go ahead and hook those up on the wires. Going forward, clean this up a little bit. But what I'm going to do is plug the headlamp in. Then these plugs here, the red one is the halo for the white light. And the yellow one here, the green one, and my yellow one is the amber. The lamp assembly goes in place. Then the ring. So with the ring, it only goes one way. And that's it there. Right there. Just tighten it up. That holds the light in place. When you're adjusting a light, there's screws here for left and right, and there's a screw on the very top, adjust up and down. So we'll see how that works. I had these things perfectly adjusted with the old halogen beams in it, and so I don't know yet till we try this, but I'm sure it'll need a different adjustment. So one other little trick I'm going to do here, along with these angel eyes or halo rings around these lights, I picked these up. These are 80 millimeter diameter. This particular light will go white or amber. I also picked up a set that just go white. And the more I got thinking about this, decided that I wanted this to be able to change colors like this is able to change colors. So this little guy is going to go inside the light internal to it. And turns out that it fits in there pretty well. And I'll show you what it takes to put it in. And we'll light it up and show you how I'm going to run that. So taking a look here at the marker lenses. It's a pretty simple design. On the 69 Camaro, the housing of the lens actually grounds to the car, to the body of the car. And while I've made every effort possible on this particular car to have quality grounding throughout it, I'm actually adding a ground wire to the back to the stud of this, back to a main ground on the front chassis. You really can never have too many ground wires. So here's what you've got with this thing. Here's your housing, and here's your 80 millimeter light, and it just barely doesn't fit. Okay? So what I'm going to do is go in here with a grinder, and I'm going to grind just the edges off of these corners. And once I do, this lens, this light is going to be able to sit completely inside of that housing. I'm also going to change that out to an LED to give it a little bit more kick. So be back with you in just a moment. So once that is cut out, just ever so slightly, the light fits in there just fine. No need to wire it in or anything. And the next thing we have to do, I have to be able to get the wire harness through the housing. So in this case, we're going to go through the housing right on top here. I'm just going to drill this out, open it up, and then some silicone over it when I'm done. So now we have an access part for the harness to get through, and I'm going to put this LED light in. I may switch these out later. Obviously there's some issues with the relay, the blinker relay that'll have to be the flasher. Have to go to an appropriate flasher for an LED. Alright, so the bulb is in. And if I get very carefully feed the harness through. There we are. Everything's in, so I'll just tighten this up. Get ready for the install. So here it is all wired up before I clean up all the details. The headlamps have a relay built into them on the module that whenever you apply power from the white halo to the yellow halo, it automatically switches it over, which is pretty cool. I was prepared to mount relays in here to do that, but it's not necessary. Same thing down here. So watch the optics in this. There is an amber in here that glows. I think it may be hard to see on the screen, but what we're going to do is go through the paces and show you how these things work. So whenever you turn the key on, the LED halos automatically come on. So when these lights function with the engine in the start or run position, and when we go to a blinker, it then isolates back and forth on its own. You can also blink on the other side as well. And then when the headlights come on, high beam and low beam, the amber is actually showing through here in the center. I can see it out here in person. I don't know how that shows on screen yet, but this is how it operates when the headlamps are on. And of course, when we go back to headlamps off, this is how it'll operate anytime the key is in the start or run position. So part of my inspiration for the LED lights in the 1969 Camaro comes from my military Humvee. This also started life with a standard style sealed beam. This truck is actually 24 volt. These are military grade lamps, and they function identical to the type that I'm putting in the Camaro with the exception of the ring around the outside. I can tell you from driving this truck, going from this style lamp to this style lamp is the proverbial night and day. So I'm experimenting here with ways to make the tail lamps brighter on this car without spending a fortune in crazy aftermarket LED lamps. And what I'm looking at doing is gluing these halo rings in the back side of the blinker light. There's going to be some visible remnant of them in there, and when the running light's going, you'll see the ring. But when the brakes are applied, you should be able to get a little more attention that the car is stopping with that ring inside there, along with the standard tail lamp. So inside the lamp, I drilled a 5/16 hole, which is what you need to get these lights through. And since that's now dried, I'm going to carefully feed them through. And there it is. So they're visible in there to some degree, just sitting here. And I know when the parking light's on, glowing standard parking light, the rings are going to show up on the back of the parking light. So see how those look once they're in the car. In the car, just like we did on the front parking lights, I went in and found my blinker, which is also the brake light, and connected the other side of the harness that also includes these regulators. Soldered that in, heat shrink on the ground and on the blinker brake light. So once the lamps are in the car, these guys get connected to activate the LEDs.
Looking at the questions, she's put that mailbag together with the questions that you have sent in. Hey, Tricia.
Hi.
So,
Just to wrap up, a couple things that made this project possible for me. Needed some sort of a cutoff tool or a Dremel to clearance the parking light so that the rings would fit in. You're gonna need basic wire splicers and crimpers, cutters, and these come in a lot of varieties. These wires that are used with the LEDs are really, really small and a little difficult to work with basic tools, but they work. Gonna need some twist ties. Gonna need the basic items, in this case the LED lamps themselves with the halo rings, and then the halo rings that I placed inside the parking lights. Remember, these here are single straight white, but this is what they look like in 80mm approximately. These are some additional ones that I bought for playing around. These are 120mm, and I initially thought that they might need to go on the outside of the lamp and possibly provide a better match for that white, what they call a milk ring. But that's not a perfect circle. It's a little bit ovalated the way that it sits in there. But this is what the 80mm whatever it looked like. This is the little relay box that allows it, when you turn the blinker on and apply power, to flip back and forth between yellow and white. So there's no need to add additional relays. If it weren't for this, you would need to set a series of relays in, some normally closed relays with some inputs from the blinkers, but you don't need that because they do have these handy little boxes. The other way to make sure that you do this appropriately, we took a trip to Harbor Freight and I picked up some marine grade heat shrink tube. Everywhere that I spliced into my connections, I made sure and applied this. This actually releases a little bit of glue around it and seals in your wiring. I picked up just a box of these basic connectors. Now on these, what I like to do, I like to remove the bright plastic end and solder them onto my wires when I install them, and then I heat shrink a sleeve over them, and it makes these a real sort of factory looking unit. And of course, you can't do things like this without a good quality soldering iron. And this is a soldering iron I've had from, if you see where it's from, Radio Shack. This thing is probably 30 plus years old, but I still use it. And that takes care of all the additional items you need along with this. You also need a basic understanding of your car's electrics. You need to know where your inputs are for your ignition on. You need to know where your inputs are for your blinkers. Other than that, pretty simple. I'm super happy with these. I love the look. I can't wait to get it out and run it. I love the fact that it actually not only looks really cool, but it makes the car safer. So here they are installed. You can see here as the sun's going down, get an idea about how bright they are. These were about 11 bucks per pair. So, you know, 22 bucks for this, plus a little bit of silicone and the time to get these installed. It definitely provides a distinction in the brake light from the running light, which is what I was looking for. Pretty inexpensive alternative to an LED light. And up front, pretty happy with those. Those bottom ones, again, those were about $20 for the pair in the 80 millimeter because they come with an amber and a white glow. And they wire right in, and they automatically, with a relay on the lights, create that sequence. And if you look closely, it's not really showing up as well in the camera as it is in person, but you can see the amber light that's in the center of there, the original stock light. And then you back out to the ring that makes that into a fog lamp, or at least a running light.